Mass General Brigham. Thousands of Canadians have turned to this world-renowned health system in Boston, Massachusetts, for expert orthopedic care from leading surgeons driven by your goals. Learn more at massgeneralbrigham.org/Canada.
This episode is brought to you by the Toyota Tundra TRD Pro, the new definition of grit. Grit is more than just mud and dirt and rocks. For the Tundra TRD Pro, grit is unrelenting torque courtesy of an iForce Max hybrid powertrain and the ability to connect with your world through the impressive 14-inch touchscreen. Grit is total confidence to tow just about anything, anywhere.
This episode is brought to you by McDonald's. Life is hectic, like that last-minute Zoom meeting that took way too long, or that play your daughter swore started at 6 p.m., but actually it's more like 5, and now you really don't have time to make anything. Luckily, you can use McDelivery instead. McDelivery loves all of that. Order everyone's McDonald's faves on Uber Eats, Skip, or DoorDash. Delivery available at participating McDonald's restaurants in Canada. See mcdonalds.ca for details.
Age of Radio.
All right, Jason, come on in. Keep your pants on this time, but
I don't know about that. But
well, you know, do your best. But hey, you're back. You're guesting on the show once again. We're just gonna wait around here for Nathan. He should be here any second. I'm not sure where he is, but
hello. It's good friend Montrose Monkington III here.
Montrose, just gonna cut you off for a second. No harm, no foul meant, but we usually don't do this till later. I mean, you know that, right?
Oh, no, actually, I heard that you chaps were going to be discussing the fine British actor Daniel Day-Lewis, and I thought that only I could do him the service that he deserves. So I should be here to talk about, and it's beautiful to be here on For Screen and Country. I mean, honestly, because it's Daniel Day-Lewis, and it must be that show that I'm on right now.
I'm sorry, Montrose. I mean, you hold on a second. You know where you are. Where's Nathan? Is he okay?
Oh, trust me, he's fine. He's not, tied up and gagged in a broom closet with the aid of an Eastern European janitor.
It's oddly specific, but
yeah.
Jason, did you have a hand in this?
I have no hands in anything, my friend.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess so. You're sitting in for him, I guess.
Yes. I have my notes here and everything.
Okay, so you planned this for a while. If you had notes, yeah, you did. Whatever.
Well, I'd heard what you guys were. I had overheard the movie that you guys were talking about. So I was like, I must watch this, and I simply must talk about Daniel Day-Lewis, a fine countryman.
I mean, all right, that your story checks out. Hit the theme, I guess.
You know when I pick a movie, that's when I'm under pressure now. The question always comes back to me, what were they thinking now? Whoa, what were they thinking? What were they thinking?
Welcome to another episode of What Were They Thinking? As you may have heard at the beginning, I guess Nathan is not here. He's taking an episode sabbatical this week. But I'm Brendan, and this is a podcast where we watch and then talk about bad to questionable movies. Now that's what we're doing this week. But before we kind of talk about the film, I got to bring on my guest co-host, ladies and gentlemen, the Daniel Day-Lewis to this podcast, I guess, he's the British monkey chimp. Montrose, introduce yourself.
Hello, it's your good friend Montrose Monkington III here from Bananashire-upon-Hampton in the great country of England.
Oh, welcome. You're here
yes,
for the for the whole thing.
Absolutely glad to be here. I think this is my second or third time.
Oh, you did Congo with us.
I did in the Spice World.
Yes.
Not Dune, but the Spice World.
Yeah, well, I'm sure in other countries, the international title for Dune is probably Spice World.
I would imagine so.
Yeah, of course. Very confusing for people in Italy when they saw that Denis Villeneuve was doing a remake of Spice World. But But Montrose, we are not alone. We have a guest, a reoccurring guest on this program. He's been here before. He'll be here again if he behaves himself. Ladies and gentlemen, Jason MacLeod.
Wait. Just stop for a goddamn minute, Brendan. Did you just say we are not alone? Are you confirming to the world right now that aliens exist? Because that's what I heard when you said that.
No, he's talking about you.
Oh!
Brendan and I are not alone. You're here as well.
But you guys wouldn't be alone if you were together.
Right. Yeah. We wouldn't be, as a person, probably not, but it would not just be the two of us building castles in the sky.
Yes, I get you.
Nor would it be just that we could make it, him and I.
We could.
But,
sure.
I mean, you're here, so...
I guess so. I guess that's... Yeah. You're so wise, Montrose.
What we're saying is...
Well, thank you.
What we're saying is three's a crowd.
You're not as bad as Nathan makes you out to be. He says some awful things about you.
I always thought that.
Yeah, called you like filthy homewrecker. I mean, is it true? Does it pee? Does it hurt? Does it burn when you pee? I mean, that's what he says.
I mean, it depends on the day, but mostly it's fine.
And are the warts, are those the real thing too? Because he described those in fairly graphic detail.
Yeah, they're real, and I'll tell you, they're fantastic.
Oh, to each their own.
Yes. Also, by the way, I'm so happy to be on with you, Montrose. This is the first time I've been on a podcast since I was on Doug Loves Movies with Coco the Ape and Boutros Ghali. He wasn't an ape. He was just a former UN president, babe.
Okay.
Dennis, get out of here.
Did you get that?
It was just,
No, it was me. It was me, Brendan. It was me. I was doing a Dennis Miller impersonation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know. It was scary.
Listen.
I did that for you.
We've had things happen.
I know. That's
on
true.
the other podcast, and my nerves are always high whenever we're on a podcast, especially when the three of us are together. Even though Nathan's not here, Montrose is here. When we combine podcasts, I get anxious.
I understand. Anything can happen, though. That's the great thing about live podcasting.
In the WWF.
Yes,
the WWF in this live podcast, which is live.
The World Wildlife Foundation.
I've got your wrestling reference in there for you too. So I secured that.
Wow, you're so great, Montrose. You really do fit in.
Well,
again, you're such a nice chap. Nathan says some terrible things about you.
I know.
I mean, I'm not I can't get into them on a podcast because even though we have the explicit rating on this, from my understanding, it would still get pulled down.
I appreciate that, Montrose, and there is legal action ongoing, so I feel like it would be great all around just to refrain from speaking of it.
Good for you, Jason.
But you know what we shouldn't refrain from speaking about, guys? It's this week's movie. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about Stars and Bars, a movie released in 1988 starring Montrose's hero, Daniel Day-Lewis, and a cavalcade of supporting actors. You got your Maury Chaykins, you got your Joan Cusacks, you got your Harry Dean Stantons, you got your a lot of people. You got your Laurie Metcalfs,
Plimpton's in this.
Martha. You got your Martha's, Plimptons. Yeah, you got.
Now, is this the movie
Will's
Daniel
Pattons?
Day-Lewis had spent 6 months living as a flag so he could pretend to be or act as if he really were the Confederate flag?
That was my question when I suggested this movie. That was the question, Brendan. Can you answer that?
Well, I was going to say that I thought this was one of his first things, but then I looked and I saw that he had actually done My Beautiful Laundrette before this, and he had done a couple other movies before this, so I don't know when he started really getting method. I know he did From My Left Foot.
I was going to say, I think that's the one. That's the one that certainly made him.
I think that came out in '89, so that was right after this. Man, he went from this movie to My Left Foot. Well, we'll get into it. That's a wild leap.
And only on one foot.
Yeah, exactly. Only on one, and the left one on top of that.
That's right? How goddamn good he is.
Plot.
Guys, Stars and Bars. This movie is about a British chap played by Daniel Day-Lewis named Henderson Dawes, a very southern-sounding name for a British man.
Henderson Dawes. I like you, Henderson Dawes.
He is an art dealer of sorts, and he is told by his boss to go down south and pick up this hugely expensive painting that this man wants to sell, and help him sell it and bring it back, and they're going to make a buttload of money. Unfortunately, he's going south, and he's British, so I think some cultures are going to clash, guys. And that's exactly what happens, and then hilarity tries to ensue.
It sure
it certainly
does.
Attempts to, for sure.
It makes a go of it.
There is an attempt made. Although, again, I would say, like a lot of comedies we've covered on this show from this era, not a whole lot of jokes, more of like a zany pace. If we do things fast enough, we don't need actual punchlines.
Just make it frenetic so nobody has to really time to think.
Exactly. So shall we just dive in?
Oh, please, Les.
Yes.
All right.
please.
Well, we start off with how else would you start a movie like this? Well, you'd start it with a fencing match.
Yes.
That's right. We meet Daniel Day-Lewis. We meet Henderson. He's fencing with his buddy Eugene, played by the great Keith David.
And that was the first surprise out of the gate. Like, wait, hold the fuck up. Keith David is in this movie? Are you kidding me?
Don't get used to him. He's in
I know.
2 scenes.
Also, you notice that the chap who did the screenwriting on this, the movie is based on his novel.
Yes.
The chap who wrote the source material, who wrote the screenplay for this, and it still ended up like this.
Well, yeah, that's the mark of quality, right? It's usually when you... I don't
Tell
know.
that to William Golding.
Yeah. Well, and also, and to be fair, guys,
To be fair,
I haven't read the book. Have you?
No.
Several times.
Well, maybe you can tell us, but I don't know. Maybe the book is exactly like this, and maybe that's a problem.
But here's the thing. Even if he read... I'm sure he read the screenplay after he was done writing it, but even if he wrote the screenplay and wrote the book, that's not to say that, studio didn't mess with the script a little bit. We've seen it happen. Doesn't matter if it's your own source material.
This is true.
Yeah.
I mean, you could go back as early as Monkey Bone on this show. Talk about that.
Goodness.
Henry
Or
Selick was...
studio or Selick type situation.
He was deprived creatively, I believe. And that might have happened here, too. I don't know. I don't know much about this writer, but anyway, yeah, we get fencing. Henderson is fencing with his friend Eugene, and he's just kind of out of sorts. By the way, Keith David playing a character named Eugene is already a great joke. Eugene. But
My name
Keith
is
David.
Why didn't he go with Gene? Gene's a good name.
That would absolutely be that's how that would have gone growing up.
Yeah.
Unless he was a large chap growing up as well, and then he would just own it and be like, "Yes, my name is Eugene, and I will beat your head in if you make fun of me."
My name is Huge Gene.
Yeah.
He could be a wrestler, and that would be his name. Yeah, exactly.
Huge Gene.
Huge Gene Okerlund.
Gene, that's in the alternate universe where Gene got involved in the whole steroid thing and just really, he ended up being, instead of Vince McMahon, he was the one that got huge.
I'm just imagining an insanely jacked Gene Okerlund now.
Well, yeah, and absolutely, and the fact he'd be like having like an interview with the Macho Man, and Macho would get fresh with him, and he'd like slap Macho Man.
Fly into that a roid rage when the SummerSlam sign fell down.
Yeah. Oh man, he would have killed 3 or 4 people around the camera.
Right? Murdered somebody possibly with his bare hands because they'd be as large as catcher's mitts.
Oh,
Just imagine
hardly
that
raised his
promo. Just imagine that promo where he told that guy to put that cigarette out. He would have stomped his brains into oblivion.
Right. This is what I'm driving at.
He would have been in that world. He would have been the first person to throw him through the barbershop window. Put that cigarette out.
Did you see that? Marty Jannetty tried to get away, and Shawn Michaels tried to catch him. So Henderson he's feeling not so great. He's lost a lot of fencing matches in a row. He's been in the U.S. for 2 months. He loves this country. He loves how unpredictable America is and wonderful and big. And I'm like, don't come back in 20 years.
It's so unpredictable that David Strathairn is a homeless person.
Is
Wait,
that
what's wrong?
Was that who
What's
that
wrong?
was?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
He
Wow.
got billing in the credits as like, and David Stratham as Charlie.
Charlie,
Yeah.
I believe, yeah, something like that.
Which I don't believe they ever say his name, but
No, and it was funny because like the first time I saw him, didn't click. Second time I saw him near the end of the movie, I was like, holy shit, it's David Strathairn. Wow, he's come a long way.
Didn't notice it at all.
What a cast.
But he says, but anyway, Henderson is like, I love it here. And Eugene says, like, look, listen, you can love it, but that don't mean the place is going to love you back.
Just because you love a place don't mean it'll love you back.
And then we start the movie with a song that is so on the nose that I fell over onto my own face. It's literally saying an Englishman in New York.
And it's literally, it's so 1988. It is a prime 1988 cut of music that I've never heard before, but it is the absolute sound of that year.
Was it made directly for this film?
I'm assuming. I don't know. I have no clue.
It could
sounds
have
like
been.
Sting.
It could have been because honestly, like there was a song written specifically for the experts. Like I think every movie had a song written for it.
I mean, Huey Lewis and the News did Power of Love just for Back to the Future.
At least that was Back to the Future, though.
Really?
Right. It was yes. That was not on any album that they ever released.
Because I know they did Back in Time for Back to the Future.
As well. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
He's walking around New York, as we hear from the song, An Englishman in New York. He yells taxi. The taxi driver yells asshole. He gets accosted by a homeless man who's David Strathairn, who I did not know that was him. And then he arrives at work, and we meet one of his coworkers, played by another fun appearance, Stephen Wright, comedian Stephen Wright, who immediately gets his arm caught in an elevator and tells Henderson that you're going to have to pay to clean my suit. Also, what's with your accent? It's really disrespectful.
Just a heads up, if you're a stoner in your mid-30s to mid-40s, Stephen Wright was the guy the guy on the couch in Half Baked.
There you go.
Yes. Yes, he was.
And a very funny stand-up comedian.
Absolutely. But they
So we learn right away that Stephen Wright is a bit of an antagonist to old Henderson. Henderson does meet with his boss though, and he tells him like, "Hey, I'm sending you down to where does he send him down to? Texas or I forget the state.
No,
Georgia, wasn't it?
It's
Georgia.
Georgia, yes.
Yeah, he sends him down to Georgia. He's like, "You're gonna go pick up a really expensive Renoir."
It's like Luxor Beach or something along those lines.
Yeah.
I don't think it's exactly Luxor because I feel the Shriners would have probably put in a cease and desist order.
He does,
but it's something like that. It's outside of Atlanta.
It's something beach in Georgia, and he's
right. And there's no beach.
No, but the name of it is something beach.
Well, I know, but they don't. Maybe it's named after one of the trees.
Maybe.
This could be because there was no beach that he went to in that place.
Bobby Beach, Georgia. So yeah, he's like go down and pick up this expensive Renoir. This guy wants to sell it to us. Wants to get us to sell it for him.
The best part, the Renoir hadn't been actually seen for almost a century.
Right.
And it has resurfaced as there's a chap who wants to sell it to them.
Well, he wants
it's not
them
just a Renoir. It's a thought to be long lost Renoir.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like it's a really expensive, valuable painting.
Can I make a point here?
You might.
This is a good one, too, I assure you. So we learn a little bit later that Mr. Gage had acquired this painting in 1946 when he was in the service. Yes. So that to me, and it was in France, I believe, that to me maybe implies that it's exceedingly possible that this piece of art could be Nazi loot.
It's a distinct possibility.
And I don't. It's funny that they don't because I feel like that detail was very. I thought, ooh, is that going to come back up? This is like something that was stolen by the Nazis, but it doesn't. But it just. I feel like that was like a writer's joke almost in there. It's like, yeah, it's just old Nazi loot, and now he has it.
So yeah, he tells him like, so Henderson, you're going to have to go down to the United States. Hey, you might want to get a. You might want to get something for breathing because this fish is going to be out of the water. So he plans to go down, and but before that, he heads to an art show where he gets accosted again by Stephen Wright. Stephen Wright's character's name is Pruitt, by the way, and he just
it's the most un-Stephen Wright name I've ever heard.
He just goes at him for like, you have it in for me, and why are you going after this? Yeah, he's like, why are you going after this painting? This is my century of expertise. Like, well, your century of expertise? What?
But not the Impressionists. Daniel Day-Lewis does point that out, that he is not an expert in the Impressionists, which apparently Mr. Henderson Dawes is.
It's a. I mean, I don't know much about art dealing, but it seems like a crazy detail that he's like, all paintings in this century, it's all me, baby. Like,
but he doesn't like Impressionism because he's a very literal-minded guy, whereas Henderson has he's got a little more intelligence to him. He can kind of conceive of those impressionistic paintings and wrap his mind around them.
Parts later on that prove that he is a rather daft individual.
Well, he's certainly not streetwise. I agree there, Montrose. He didn't grow up on the mean streets of, Bristol. He's clearly from a posh upbringing.
Listen, he didn't grow up watching Street Sense, so how is he going to know?
That's true.
He probably grew up watching Coronation Street.
Sure.
So, I mean, there's some street sense, right? Some street smarts right there. I mean,
that's true.
I mean, it's Coronation Street smarts, but I mean, still,
the smarts is stay off the streets and get to a pub.
Right?
Use your common sense, your street sense. Henderson at this art show does meet Irene, played by the great Joan Cusack. And one part it does kind of make me laugh early on is he's being very honest about how terrible this painting is, and then she turns around and is like, "This is my brother. He painted it." And it's a very like, because throughout the movie,
But she also agrees that it's absolute toss.
she does once they're away from him. But what's funny is that throughout this movie, you'll hear this a lot. Henderson reacts and gets all befuddled and gets nervous and uncomfortable.
As Englishmen do.
It does just feel though like if this had been made like 4 or 5 years later, it would have been Hugh Grant, right?
No,
most definitely.
I had that exact thought, Brendan. I thought this was like the prototype run, like they were trying to get Daniel Day-Lewis to fit into that slot as the befuddled British man, but it didn't really work. Or it was certainly because this movie I don't think was particularly successful. But then later, him becoming a legit actor, and then them moving on and getting Hugh Grant. So,
right?
Because this is I think the straightest I've ever seen Daniel Day-Lewis in a movie. This is I think as close to him as a person.
Usually he's full laming.
Yeah, exactly. Usually even in Phantom Thread, which is the closest his voice is to this movie. It's just weird seeing him in a role where he's just playing like essentially a stock character at this point, the befuddled British man.
This and Gangs in New York, I feel like he's closest to his real persona.
Yes, he does love knives.
He meets Joan Cusack. I just wrote down he's the bumbliest British stereotype ever. It's the very like 80s Hollywood, like he's British, get it? So he's awkward around everything, and he falls down a lot.
He gets cruised by the waiter at the restaurant.
Oh yes, the obviously coded homosexual waiter gives him the eyes.
Paying no attention to Miss Joan Cusack, who is looking lovely in this movie,
wonderful.
by the way.
She's prime. This is prime Joan right here.
And I mean,
the waiter's having nothing to do with him.
She's also just always fun. I find like in any movie, she's always quirky. She's always a fun presence to have. So it's nice to see Joan Cusack in one of her 4 or 5 scenes, I believe.
Yes.
I thought you were going to say it's nice to see Joan Cusack getting work.
I think she's doing fine.
I'm so glad she was getting work in 1988. I'm happy for her.
Yeah, 3 years removed from one of the best runs on Saturday Night Live of all time. Oh
my.
So Irene, Joan Cusack, they're outside. She's hitting on him pretty hardcore. But when she stops to blow her nose, a bunch of men come out of nowhere and seemingly start chasing him, and he pushes her
like
into
an RKO.
He pushes her into a pile of garbage bags, runs away, and then they end up not chasing him in one of the most contrived things ever, and they just run past him and get in a cab.
It's ridiculous. There's no such thing as a gang of business toughs.
No.
Because they're walking, and Daniel Day-Lewis, Henderson sees them, and he's giving them the side eye, and he's like, "Hey, we must cross the street because these chaps, I don't really trust." He doesn't say that to her, but he just kind of nudges her across the street, and thinks that they're going to mug him, but they're all dressed in like, business suits, Max. They look like businessmen who are waiting for a cab. Why is he afraid of them?
But, well, I mean, the way that they're running towards him is pretty weird.
Look, and I would argue, too, when you see them, and it's clear to me that this was like, oh, who are we going to cast in these roles? Let's just grab 3 of the Teamsters off the set, and we'll use them. Like, the guy, like, they look like Teamsters.
Throw a suit on them, though, because they still look like the businessmen.
But they look like mob businessmen to me. Like, they got a little, because they're big, and one's got a mustache, and they look a bit threatening, and they're kind of smoking cigarettes and looking at him, and he's like, oh, those people are coming to get me.
Everyone was smoking cigarettes. It was the 80s.
That's true. By the way, I was happy for the janitor I saw earlier on who was smoking a cigarette while he was mopping the floor. I thought, God, that guy's living the life.
So it turns out to be a mistake because, like I said, they all get into a cab, and Irene is like, so I don't think I like you very much because you just shoved me the fuck over. Bye. At one point, though, she did kiss him, to which I noted, it's bold to start this character out, us knowing that he's got a fiance and already cheating on his fiance.
Yeah, right out the gate. Like it's clear.
Who was the fiance played by?
That was played by Mrs. Laurie Metcalf,
the great,
a young Laurie Metcalf. And you know what? Whilst her personality is rather grating in this film, I don't feel that she is. I don't know the word I look for here. Unlivable with. I'm not. I mean, she seems a little loofy, but she also does put up with Henderson's bollocks as well, figuratively and literally.
Yeah, it's not like
Yes,
if you want
absolutely.
to show us him being okay with like making out with Joan Cusack right away, and us knowing he has a fiance, you better make her very unlikable. Like,
Yeah, she was.
Well, it's because then it's the 80s. He needs to be justified in doing what he does in this film.
Well,
exactly.
maybe that's just a differing standard on what is considered awful. Like that they went like where you'd have to go harder nowadays. Maybe they didn't need to go as hard because women all sucked, right? It was the 80s, baby.
Well, if Sinbad is to be believed, they would be shopping.
They'll always be shopping.
Sinbad also always had the most controversial stand-up material.
I think what's going on is that obviously, whilst the ladies are both very fetching and also very rather nice-ish in their personalities, there's definitely a distinct difference because Laurie Metcalf is or Melissa as she's named in the movie is very yuppie.
Yes.
I mean, she's very materialistic. She is a material girl who is living in a material world.
No question.
So, and she has the penthouse apartment, whereas Irene is a struggling artist who sells computers.
Which I love, by the way.
I think it's more of the free spirit that Henderson wants. Still, again, his fiance, he should just have some sack and be like, you know what, I can't stand being around you.
Joan Cusack is basically a manic pixie dream girl in this movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
But also, did you notice her business card? I love her business card. She hands it to him, and he looks at it. It has her name on it, and then it says, like, computers, and then has her, like, phone number. And it's
Patrick
like,
Bateman would have a heart attack if he saw that business
it's like-
card.
So it's like, is she like a freelance independent computer broker? Like, is she? It was the 80s were a
She sells
fantastic
computers.
time.
And they were, and you could probably get away with that.
Yeah.
And just say, having your name on it and computers. Well, this person's the wave of the future. I certainly must call them with all of my computer needs.
You want a tape drive? We'll get you a tape drive.
We'll get you anything
Yes,
you
a
want.
VIC-20.
So, like you said, we do meet Melissa, his fiance, played by Laurie Metcalf. She has an adorable little pug and a daughter named Bryant, played by a very young Martha Plimpton. To which another little funny bit is she's smoking, and she's like, "What did I say? No more than 5 cigarettes a day."
What are you, 14?
It was
15?
the 80s. That's the way
She's
things were, from
15.
what I'm told.
She's 15 in
Yes.
the movie, yeah.
But you're right.
She
You're
is.
right, though, Nathan.
I'd heard of stories of children who were 9 and 10 being asked to go to the store to get their father's cigarettes, and it being perfectly permissible.
Certainly.
Oh, no, but
you
They
just
generally
needed a
didn't
note.
smoke them on the way home. Did
Well, that's
they?
what I mean. Yeah, there's a difference between getting the cigarettes for them and smoking them in the living room. But she basically is like, Bryant is basically like begging Henderson, like, "Oh, just take me with you on this trip, please. Just let me go with you." He's like, "Of course not, absolutely not." And but she surprises him at the airport. She already asked her mom, and she's like, "Yep, you're going with him." It's important to note, Bryant is not his daughter. I just want to make that very clear right now. Okay.
She is 15.
She's 15. We should also make that very clear right now.
Now, this movie's from the 80s. When I was watching it, now I have to say, and perhaps I'm the
When
only
you
one
were
here.
watching it was from the 80s?
Yes, it remains
Okay.
so now. I checked.
Oh, okay.
But did
So
anybody
make
else
that clear.
have a thought? And maybe this is because we've watched too many fucking sad British movies. But anybody else think that this girl was going to try to fuck Daniel Day-Lewis?
Yes.
Yeah.
I certainly thought he would be changing his name to Hubert Humbert at some point.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't think that the character would be down for it, but I thought that maybe she would try.
I thought it was going to be a situation where he wasn't. I was worried it was going to be one of those things where he wasn't down for it, but he like went with it too far for comfort, and then it's like, no, movie, we don't need this shit. Thankfully, they don't do that, but unfortunately, they do something else. But we'll get to it. So yeah, she basically connives her way into coming with him. I thought it was weird that they were in an airport, but then next scene they cut to them in like a car.
Yes.
Yes.
Like they didn't even like show them getting on the plane. Like I just thought that was a weird. edit.
They were.
But you know what? I respect that because that shows that the filmmakers respect our time. We don't. I could take for granted that they actually got on a plane because they show them in an airport and then they show them in Georgia. Yeah. So
we get it.
I'm able to put two and two together and say, oh, they got on a plane at LaGuardia or JFK and then landed in Georgia.
They didn't need to
and
license
then
stock footage.
get a rental, and then drove out to the middle of Bumblescum nowhere where this painting resides.
Well, I'm assuming these filmmakers that respected our time were replaced at some point because the filmmakers later.
I didn't say they respected our intelligence. I said they respected our time.
This movie's only 90 minutes long. They did respect our time.
They did not respect
Absolutely.
our time at certain points because there were times where this movie just went on for 5-10 minutes without anything really happening. So anyway, they get.
By the way, sorry, Brendan, can I just point out, I want to point this out because we don't see it very often. The car they're driving is like a pristine Ford Taurus of that era. It's like, because I mean, obviously they would have been trying to sell the car in the movie, so it looks pristine. You do not see Tauruses in that condition anymore because they've all fallen apart. If they're still on the road, they're not in great shape. So folks, appreciate the glory of the Ford Taurus.
I don't
Thank
know.
you.
I saw an Acadian around the city I'm at in pristine condition.
Wow.
Somebody had lovingly restored it and painted it a bright yellow.
That's awesome.
So,
That's wonderful. I would do that with a K car.
a nice Reliant automobile?
You got it, bud.
If I had $1 million, yeah.
I definitely get that K car.
I would not buy someone a monkey. I feel that would be
Well, that'd be
wrong.
weird if you bought a monkey, considering you are a monkey. I think there's something illegal there going on.
I mean, there were
chimpanzee.
all sorts of people that were involved in the slave trade. I mean, some of them.
I don't know if that's something we should go back to, Jason.
No. I'm just saying there's precedent.
Well, there's precedent. That makes it okay. So Anderson and Bryant show up at the Gage mansion where they're greeted by loud rock music and seemingly I thought was going to be an
Elvis Kaufman.
well, seemingly what I thought was going to be an insane person played by Harry Dean Stanton, but he actually turns out to be one of the more sane characters in the movie. And his reoccurring thing for now is him just yelling "Alma May" at his maid, who's off screen for some of the time.
I was upset. Not once did he ask anybody to avenge him.
Not once. There was a moment for it, right?
Right? Yes, I thought so.
There was a moment later
Several.
on. Yeah. Well, especially one late in the movie. But he.
Yes, but don't forget Maury Chaykin as
Well,
Elvis
we're
Kaufman.
getting.
You see
Yeah,
him.
we're coming to him.
Well, you see him before they even run because he's out in the
let
street.
me-
He's out in
hey,
the yard practicing his Elvis routine.
Montrose.
What?
Let me.
I'm just doing this in order.
Let me narrate. We don't have to hit
All right,
every single
I'm sorry.
point.
I'm sorry.
But he has his we meet the housemaid Alma May. I was a little like, oh no, okay, we've got a black housemaid in a southern town. Oh boy. But thankfully nothing really happens there, thank God. She does offer to
She's a lot more like the maid from the Jeffersons.
yeah,
She'll do the work, but she also won't take your sass.
or she's like she reminded me
Or serve you meat because she's vegetarian.
she reminded me kind of like a Benson or something.
Can I just
got that snarky
offer
attitude.
this? I feel like Keith David may have been added to this movie after the fact when they realized that the only black characters that they had in this movie were Alma May and then the random workers at the hotel or the restaurant that you see.
Oh, and they said
And then they were like, no, we should have a black person in this movie that has more agency and isn't just a maid.
Jason, I think we're putting far too much stock into the mid '80s.
Maybe.
They did not really care much one way or the other about diversity.
yeah.
Well, that's true. I don't know what the thoughts of these filmmakers were, but then again, they did name this movie Stars and Bars, so. Which, by the way, folks, was the first flag of the Confederacy. It is not the classic, what you consider the rebel flag, Confederate flag. That was not an actual Confederate flag. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
As Alma May says, as Montrose mentioned earlier, Alma May doesn't make anything with meat, and she ain't making no beds. So you're vegetarian, and your bed's messy. We do meet Gage's son, Mr. Gage's son, Freeborn, as played by Maury Chaykin, and yes, he looks like Fat Elvis.
He looks like Fat Elvis played by Andy Kaufman.
I honestly didn't expect this movie to have crossover with The Sweet Hereafter.
Oh yeah. Maury Chaykin showing up in both movies.
Yeah.
He seems all fine and dandy until Mr. Gage walks away, and then he looks at Henderson and says, basically, I'm gonna bust your English fucking head if you don't get your English fucking ass out of this fucking house. So we know there's...
I felt was rather out of place for a Canadian chap like him.
Oh.
Yes, 100%. I was very disappointed in Mr.
Well, that
Chaykin.
just shows what an actor he is.
You
He can play
exactly.
an
You
angry
do what
American.
you need to do for the art, for the craft.
For the craft. So we know right away there's some conflict here, and Mr. Gage is about to leave poor old Henderson in the house alone with Freeborn and the other crazies that are around the property. And he's like, listen, I got some business mates in town, but you stay back here. We'll talk about that painting later. And I'm sure Henderson just wants to get it done and get out of there. But he also meets, there's a few other people. There's Freeborn and his wife, and there's also a blind woman named Cora who is...
There's no phone in the house. I really have to make we can't stress that enough.
Yes.
No phone in the
He
house.
doesn't believe in them?
Because Harry Dean Stanton will not allow it.
Right, but there...
No phone in the house. You can use the one at Freeborn's place.
If the Freeborn...
His trailer across the yard.
Freeborn's trailer does have a phone, but there is a woman who we assume to be blind, which leads to kind of a scene that made me laugh is when she's going up the stairs, and instead of like making his presence known, he just sneakily like tries to make it so that they don't brush up against each other, and she goes up the rest of the stairs. There's a twist about her later. Freeborn and his wife have a big blow up, and kind of scary because he walks out, and when Henderson arrives, Freeborn's wife has big old bruises on her face.
Back when domestic abuse was still a funny joke.
Yeah, it's good. It was a punchline in 1988 for sure. Literally,
so to speak.
It just a weird tone shift too, because this movie starts out so goofy, and then it goes to like, yeah, this woman's clearly being abused by her husband. It's like it's a weird tone shift, and you're gonna see a lot more of those.
They also have the strangest argument where she tells him to leave. And then when he says, I'm leaving, she says, don't leave me.
Well, I think she's saying, leave, but don't leave me.
Leave, but don't leave me. Look around, choose your own ground. Sorry, that was a Pink Floyd song. My apologies.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Listen, Freeborn's done some shit to her brain, I'm sure, so...
Stockholm Syndrome is what you're saying.
I believe so, yes. Okay. Henderson goes over and he asks to use the phone, and he calls his boss. He calls his boss to tell him what's going on and how there's going to be a problem here because Freeborn doesn't want to take the painting. And the boss is clearly having like a press conference, so the whole time he's like, "Oh, great, that's wonderful, Henderson. Yes, great news." And he's like, "No, there's a problem." And then of course the boss is like, "Call me back in 24 hours." So nothing transpires out of that conversation. Brian, okay, this is the scene.
Yes, please do. I know what you're going to say.
This is the scene where we talked earlier about how we all thought that Bryant was at some point going to try to fuck Daniel Day-Lewis. This is the scene where I thought it was really going to happen because Bryant goes into Henderson's room while he's changing and is a little bit too alluring for my comfort.
She looks like she's ready for a pants-off dance-off.
Yeah, and again, the character is supposed to be 15 years old.
Well, she just doesn't give a fuck.
She's up to 5 smokes a day, though. I mean, leave.
She's probably smoking 7 in that town.
No, she's smoking as much as she wants, baby. She's going through Virginia Slims 100s.
So I mean, she's 15, but she has the lungs of a 45-year-old.
Right.
That makes it okay.
That makes everything else okay.
Because it balances out as an average, you see.
Yeah, exactly. It all works out in the math.
It's like when Joan Rivers said that she couldn't pose in Playboy because most of her parts were under 18.
Yeah.
Oh man,
we miss her.
So she goes into his room. She acts a little bit too alluring, and she does mention, though, we do get this little nugget of knowledge here early on, is that she says she heard that Freeborn may have already sold the painting to someone. Okay, here we go.
She's getting friendly with Dwayne.
Dwayne, played by Will Patton, who is definitely not 15.
No, and mostly unseen for the good duration of this film.
He doesn't show up till the almost the very end of the movie.
That's weird because there's another character in the movie, and I thought that was Dwayne, and
no, Beckwith.
He's the other brother.
Well, that's what I mean. I thought that was Dwayne because we never saw Dwayne, and then when I saw that Will Patton was playing Dwayne, I was like, man, Will Patton looks so different. And then when Dwayne shows up later, I was like, oh wait, no, that's fucking Will Patton. So this movie, it's basically like Memento. It just messes with your mind.
That's right.
So Irene does manage to call Henderson on Freeborn's phone.
Stalker much?
Yeah, she just I love how innocently it's played off. I just called your work and said I had a painting to sell and I was only going to talk to you, and they just gave me the direct number. I'm like, Joan Cusack, that's cool. Like, you're great and everything, but like, wow, that's a mile to travel.
Perfectly acceptable thing to give to a lovable character in an 80s movie.
Yes, exactly.
That's some hackers shit. That's what we call social engineering, what she did there. Like when
to
Johnny
hack the
Lee
man.
Miller asked the guy for the modem number. He's like, I'm the guy.
Wait,
that's
Johnny
exactly
Lee
what
Miller did a Dennis Miller impression when he called?
Yeah, I
he's
think,
like, give me that modem number. Nah.
I think
And
you've
they're like, yes,
confused-
Dennis Miller, of
confused
course.
your Millers.
I haven't seen a modem number that long since Lawrence of Arabia, babe. Lawrence of Arabia was a movie, not a modem, Dennis. Listen, I've had a lot of brain
Modems
damage.
in Lawrence of Arabia.
Ooh, I wish I had bought that Lawrence of Arabia themed modem in the 90s. That would have been a fucking collector's item.
Completely breaks down after 3 hours, though.
The only thing that was special about it was that you would put it in your computer, and when you dialed in, the static would change into the theme from Lawrence of Arabia.
But the problem is, though, it came in 2 parts, and once you've been on the internet for so long, you actually had to stop and put the switch them out for the other parts.
Oh, see,
hot swapping modems.
Oh, see, I had a slightly updated one where I didn't have to switch it out, but I had to flip it upside down.
Okay,
Yeah. So let's continue it.
Mr. Laserdisc.
That was the AOL version.
Yeah, and the
actually.
worst part is they only got like 6 free hours, so that was like what you use it like for 2 Lawrence sessions and you're done.
That's only I was gonna say that's not very many of Lawrence's at all.
No, very grainy too.
Maybe if you watch the theatrical.
Okay, Dennis, get out of here. What's going on?
It's strange that Dennis Miller sounds like Edward G. Robinson.
Yeah, no, as he gets older, he's turning into him slowly.
Hopefully, the whole thing soon. Oh, just kidding.
My goodness.
I don't wish death on Dennis Miller. So Irene manages to call Henderson. She says, Henderson's like, well, we should spend the weekend together before I go back home. So he kind of arranges that. It's a very close call with Freeborn, though, because as he leaves the trailer, Freeborn's coming back in. He's like, I don't like no English chicken shit fingers on my phone. He's a real angry guy. Henderson is somewhat alarmed when he goes back into the house, and the Cora is just sitting there, the woman who we believe to be blind, and Freeborn's sister. And she surprises him and says, "Oh, you should have a drink," and then just talks about her profound hatred for the English. And you're so
Yes, this is one of my least favorite characters in the movie.
you're so snobby, and you're such a twit, and you think you're better than everyone. And at the same time, Daniel Day-Lewis is making what I can only describe as like the monkey impression that Nick Frost does in Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah.
Yes, he's doing an ape face because she says that that you want everybody to ape your style, everyone to ape your mannerisms. And I was like, you know what? I am thoroughly offended, and will be writing the producers. What's that? Oh, no longer in the business. Never mind.
Well, Montrose,
time took care of it for me.
I mean, how did you feel about not only, like you said, not only is this a slander on British people, but Daniel Day-Lewis is, like you said, he's doing ape face.
Right. Well, but that's the thing. Again, it was, while not acceptable now, he actually did spend 6 months living with apes
and Jane Goodall
just to learn to make that face.
Yeah.
Right.
He would.
Yeah.
He would. By the way, what she says about the British, I don't think that's offensive because I think it's true. But also I think it's as true for Americans.
Bastard.
I think everything she says is equally as applicable to Americans today, especially if not 1988, although probably 1988.
Yep.
Oh, in the 80s for sure.
Yeah.
It was Reagan's America. Well, actually, at this point, I think it was,
America and Britain criticizing each other
it was
over imperialism is
88 was the tail end of Reagan's America, but they were going into Bush's America, so not a whole lot better.
No.
But so it turns out she's not blind at all because she says, "Oh, nice impression," or whatever she says, and he realizes that she could see him the whole time. And his embarrassment though was very realistic. Like I totally bought that. Him turning around completely and not even being able to talk and shaking. Like I could see that.
Well, actually, Brendan, you might not know this. That's actually our default setting. We're thoroughly embarrassed most of the time.
Oh well, it works. It works for the character's choice in this movie.
Okay.
Didn't he like flip her off and then she was like, and fuck you
Yeah,
too?
something like that.
Yes, that happened. Yes.
So they all gather together. Everyone in the house. Mr. Gage is back. Everyone's there. They're all gathering in the.
For this strangest dinner party.
Yeah, they're all gathering in the kitchen for dinner party with a very disgusting looking food. And of course, Mr. Gage is like, no, now Henderson, we gotta clean our plates before Alma May takes the plates away.
Before she clears, and that there's the joke at the time, because vegetarianism was kind of on the rise as a chic thing to do, and so we have to make the food look as unappealing as possible. Throw a shrub that was ripped straight out of the ground, just throw it right onto the plate and call it vegetarian cuisine. That's hilarious.
Yeah, vegetarians, of course, known for eating sticks and green mush.
Yes, they love it. They just love picking shit off the ground and putting it on
This
the
is
plate.
where we also meet the Reverend, played by Spalding Gray.
Of all people.
Strange choice. Although spot on, given that what his character is like.
Great casting,
Well,
for sure.
Yeah.
Spalding Gray it takes a real liking to Bryant, again, a 15-year-old girl, but he is playing a reverend, so maybe there's some commentary.
He's playing
that was-
a philandering gross reverend.
Yeah, there's some
actually.
commentary
Like
here,
most
I
of them.
think. But
Like most of the clergy.
he
Yeah,
sits beside her, and he starts like feeling up her leg, and I'm like, and then she starts feeling him back, and I'm like, but then of course she grabs his nuts as hard as she can.
really twists his banana off.
Yeah.
Hey,
really drives it home. Like, that scene goes on for a little while, like far longer than I would expect. You'd think it'd just be one twist and he'd like make a funny noise and that would be that. But no, she really just wrenches.
I appreciate what was going on at this time.
Yes.
However, I feel that this section actually could have been punched up had they asked him to say a blessing, and then as she was doing this, his amens or calls to the Lord to bless their food got higher and higher until at the very end, when she finally relented and decided not to give him an over-the-clothes vasectomy, said, he would just say, "Thank you, Jesus."
Yeah.
And it collapsed.
I think you're gonna say that he got like his voice would get so high that eventually there's like at the very end they can't hear him anymore, but the dog like turns his head sideways.
Oh no! See, this isn't
That's
nothing
the
but trouble. This is Stars and Bars.
Yeah, this isn't the 90s. That's a 90s joke.
Very much so.
Would have been far too ahead of its time in 1988.
You're right. Sorry, guys. So that whole dinner scene happens. Mr. Gage finally does take Henderson to see the painting. You know, Henderson's checking out to see if it's legitimate. It's a real device he uses, but I just laughed because I just imagined him. He was like taking a black light looking for stains or something.
Oh yes, I see you really enjoyed this painting. Really enjoyed this topless woman's painting.
He's like, well, 1 second, please. Oh no, wait, that's Freeborn. My bad.
Oh my goodness gracious! No, it's not that there's just two of them doing it, but he could decipher between the two simply by the taste.
Oh, he's British. He has good taste.
Well, I can't argue that.
Mr. Gage at this point has a line where he says, like, you know, everyone should be bonded together because you know what? We're all eventually gonna die.
And we just want to be happy.
Yeah, we just want to be happy. And Henderson is like, yeah, I get it. And I was like, Mr. Gage, where are you in 2022 telling everyone that, you know what, let's all be friends because we're all going to die. We need someone to do that right now.
That's true, we do.
We're doing it right now, chaps.
We are.
That's true.
We're letting everybody know. So you're all eventually going to die, and everybody just wants to be happy, so we need to just gotta get along and let everyone have their happy, provided it hurts no one.
Mm-hmm. To any kids listening, the
Oh,
hip
good
and
Lord, what are you
groovy-
doing? Where are
the
your
groovy thing
parents?
to do-
They are terrible letting you listen to this.
Yes, agreed. But if you're listening, what you should do is you should probably make up some memes about this guy, about how you should live life, and because you're gonna die, and then you can post them on Something Awful or 4chan or wherever the kids go these days.
I hope there are no kids going to 4chan.
No, they shouldn't, but they do.
Oh my God! Jeez, you could have said Reddit. You could have said Instagram.
Reddit's for millennials, don't you know that?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Jason, you've disturbed me to my very core, thinking that there are children on 4chan.
Well, if you,
It's a terrible thought.
Well, I mean, speaking of
And
like,
listening to this show.
Ugh, yeah, that's gross.
Speaking of political debate and such, Freeborn tries to start a political debate at the table, and by that I mean he says, "What you got against our missiles? We got ours and you got yours. What's the big deal?"
And then he tells him to lay off when Freeborn is the one who starts the bloody argument.
Yeah. But Freeborn's the one who brought up politics at the table, this southern table with this British man. You're just asking for a reaction.
And that's my question is, what is he even talking about? Is he talking about anything specific that maybe I just don't get the context? Or is he just like so dumb that he's like, what, you got a problem with our missiles? Because Britain's got plenty of missiles of their own. And a lot of them
he does know that they have theirs, yeah. and then that Britain has theirs, and he should just lay off, even though Freeborn was one of the stars. Actually, this scene, this argument, and all the stuff that was going on, and the fact that it was such a small dining room with so many people eating, and it looked kind of filthy, it actually made me take notice, when does Leatherface come in? Because this looks like, I know it's in Georgia, but this looks like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
It also smells like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know, sometimes you watch a movie and you can just smell the movie.
Oh, yeah, well, you can certainly smell imagery. I heard about you guys watching Human Centipede 2, and it sounds like you could smell some imagery in that film too.
And see.
Tell you, this Sporting Life didn't smell great either.
There you go.
That much.
But less tying people's mouths to other people's assholes in that movie.
Also
though.
true. Yes.
Yeah.
But only by like 90%, right?
Right. There's the famous scene where Richard Harris is like, "Come on over, love. Give me that butthole of yours.
I'm gonna put my mouth on it and sow it out."
Stitch.
This sounds delightful.
Yeah, it's great.
So very ahead of their time.
The next day, we start a reoccurring thing that goes throughout the movie, where every time Henderson goes back to his car, there's one more thing removed. At this point, there's just one of his tires has been taken off because apparently he had a flat. So he just goes off hitchhiking, and of course, Freeborn drives by, and gravel gets tossed in his face. But don't worry. He stops by the superest, redneckest bar he can find. And, they have that old joke where he gives him a beer, and he's like, "Can I get a glass?" And, he empties the glass. It's got cigarette butts in it, and, gross.
I like that joke. I laughed when he did that. When he just fucking turns it over and dumps it out, bunk, and puts it down.
So you do like a good cliched 80s comedy.
Oh, I do.
Jason.
I do love a good cliche comedy.
You know what made me laugh the most in this scene though is how he runs into one of the brothers, and the I don't know what it was. It was the crazy one. What was his name?
Yeah, Beckwith
or
whatever. Yeah.
And he acts so like, I don't know, just his actions are so funny. Like, he just gives him that look like, oh, hey, Henderson, how you doing? And he's like batting his eyes at him and stuff.
And he advises Henderson that he's a particle physicist.
Yeah.
Yes. Which I thought would have been because it would have been the
if
perfect
that would have
thing,
been
obviously.
true, I feel that would have been much funnier.
Yeah, that at the end of the movie you see him and he's like going to work at the nuclear plant or something, and somehow we see that it's like, oh wow, he really was a nuclear physicist.
It's just under a lot of pressure. That's why he does all the pretending I was in Vietnam games that he does later.
Well, it's like you think about it, like remember that NASA's like main like communication center is in fucking Houston, Texas. So,
right.
You know what? Just because a place has a reputation as being dumb, don't mean it ain't full of smart people.
And listen, I'm a geography expert. I know that Georgia is right next door.
I'm pretty sure there's at least 2 states in between them, but you know what?
It's right next. Shares a border. So Henderson calls his boss again. Of course, Pruitt answers, and he pretends that Henderson's in big trouble, and he acts like an asshole. And the boss walks in, and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And he takes the phone, of course, and Henderson is like, I think the sale's going to go through as planned. We're good to go. And he's like, great. Scene over. Doesn't matter. Again, this is an example of this movie wasting our time. We don't need that scene at all. The crazy brother drives him home.
Yes, but then we wouldn't have gotten the comedy gold of him walking back to town, the cigarette butt glass being dumped, which Jason loved.
I loved it.
I mean,
you can have that scene. You can have that scene without the phone call scene. No, I think it's just completely pointless.
But why is he walking to town? Why does he go to the bar, Brendan?
Because he wants to get a drink.
But and also use the phone because he can't do that at Freeborn's place at the moment.
I mean, he could have. Freeborn took off.
But then we have to put in a plot contrivance for that to happen, as opposed to the plot contrivance for him having to walk into town, ask for a beer, get a
I'm just saying
glass of
this
cigarettes
scene,
dumped out.
this phone call doesn't accomplish anything, so it's a completely pointless scene.
See, I wish they'd had a joke. Like, did you ever see Play It Again, Sam with Woody Allen?
No.
No.
Oh, cool movie. But one of the jokes in that movie is that the guy that Woody Allen always hangs out with is like a business guy, and every time he goes to a restaurant or a place, doesn't matter where it is, he like tells them like he gets to what the phone number is here, and then he uses the phone to tell his like assistant this is where he was, and so that he could get a phone call there. They should have had something like that. Like, he should have always been calling somebody whenever he gets in.
Oh, so you're saying that this should have acted as a secondary phone location for Henderson?
Absolutely.
When he couldn't use Freeborns, then the people from New York should call him at that number.
Exactly. He should have been building a network of phones for him to be able to do his business, but he didn't do it because
a phone tree, if you will, which was
right. His own personal.
It was a big thing with networking in the 80s for sure. Yes.
Sure, for sure. Especially in the South, they love their trees.
See, Brendan, you have to have this scene. It stays in the movie. It cannot be replaced. You're
integral, Brendan. Integral.
It's pointless. So he gets a ride home from Beckwith, and Beckwith, of course, is talking about the thing we heard earlier. He says, "Oh, Freeborn's already selling that painting. I'm telling you, he's got business associates, and he's getting it sold. So you're not going to be able to buy it." And of course, then we continue the reoccurring joke of Henderson's car falling apart even more. Now all the tires are gone. At this point, we get a little of comedy of errors because Henderson's wife calls.
It's the wacky lady mix-up.
Yeah, yes. Wacky lady mix-up because Freeborn's wife. Okay, so Freeborn's wife thinks that Irene is going to call back about the little weekend getaway, but it's
her name is Shanda.
Shanda, but it's Henderson's wife, Laurie Metcalf, that calls and says, "Oh, he wants to. Of course, the weekend thing. Oh, I'll be there." So of course, Shanda says, "Oh, your girl called. She's good to go for the hotel for Atlanta." But now we got a bit of a kerfluffle here because both Irene and Henderson's wife both think they're going to this hotel in Atlanta with Henderson for the weekend. Uh-oh.
It was a real Brady Bunch situation.
So back at the Gage household, the Gage mansion, as it were, Shanda is very drunk. She falls over, and Henderson's trying to help her up. And, of course, this is when Freeborn shows up and thinks that he's boning his wife. Henderson runs away. The best part is Freeborn chases him for a while to try to beat him up. Henderson runs away, and then finally, at one point, Freeborn's like, eat shit, and walks away.
It's because he grabs a switch and is going to start fencing with him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I think is because, and they don't put it out so much in the dialogue, but I believe it was possibly because of post-traumatic stress disorder suffered by Freeborn when he was younger, as a boy in the South who would be forced to go cut a switch.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yes, I hadn't thought of that.
It was probably in the novel.
Probably. Yeah. And the guy who adapted it was like, "Oh, I don't want to keep that in. Oh wait, it's my own book."
and then fencing scene that must be there.
Yeah.
So,
we also should note that Freeborn at this point arrives with his two business associates who don't look like art dealers at all. One of them doesn't even have like a good portion of his teeth.
Oh my goodness! I swear to God, I thought he was a goalie from the AHL.
So we're like, this plot is advancing, and Cora, at this point, the woman who we thought was blind, Cora comes over to get Henderson and says, "Oh, you might want to come over here and meet with my dad right now." And the dad, Harry Dean Stanton, is meeting with those two men who want to pay $15 million for the painting. That's about 7 more than Henderson was going to pay. And it looks like that deal is going to be made. So he's a little bit upset he's very upset about that.
See, that surprised me. I literally thought when he said that he had sold the painting, I assumed that he had sold it for like $50 in a case of beer. Like I maybe thought he was that stupid that he was going to sell the painting for just whatever.
They never quite explain how Freeborn is smart enough to know what a long lost Renoir would be, and also how to contact people who would be interested in it. He lives in a trailer across the yard from his father's front steps.
Yeah, would he encounter people at the local bar, which, by the way, had the first Confederate flag on the wall like 45 minutes into the movie?
Right. The stars in the bars?
Is he just like, yes? No, that's not the right flag. It's not. There is not a single stars and bars flag in this movie, folks. This is the greatest lie of this film.
I thought you said the first Confederate. You said that was
the first Confederate flag. That flag that is on the wall, that is a Confederate. They call it the Confederate battle flag or the rebel flag. That was never the national flag of the Confederacy. The stars and bars. The stars and bars resembles the American flag in that it's like a thick red bar, a white bar, and a red bar, and then the upper canton is blue with 11 or 13 stars in it. in a circle.
Hey, the more you know.
There you go. You learn, and then of course the second flag of the Confederacy was the stainless flag, which was that battle flag, but in a square in the upper canton, and the flag was white because they're all white people defending slavery. And then the final flag of the Confederacy, of course, was the bloodstained banner, which was white with the Confederate flag in the upper canton. There, the rebel flag, but also a red stripe along the end because the previous flag was too often mistaken for a surrender flag.
There we go.
So Republicans, get your racism right.
That's right. If you're going to be a racist, you got to fly the proper flags.
So now Henderson's car is completely gone.
Oh, no. You're stepping over the part where Loomis is clearly having an affair with the pastor's wife.
Loomis?
Mr. Gage.
Oh, yeah, because we don't hear his name Loomis up until this point, and I remember being like, his name is Loomis?
There's some strange, very southern names in this movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is he? I thought that was just his wife. I was confused about that scene. So he's having an affair with someone?
I was positive that was the pastor's wife.
Oh, maybe. Wait.
She showed up with Spalding when they first came in.
Yes.
I'm almost positive they were arm in arm. I am not rewatching this to prove that.
No, I understand. Mm-hmm. But I think that is implying that the pastor and his wife perhaps are swingers, because given his
either swingers or they're philanderers who think they're getting one over on the other.
Mm-hmm. Oh, are they the people that song was based upon? Where they put the ad in the paper and then it's like, and then I like two pina coladas.
You like pina coladas and getting cold in the rain.
Yeah. Those two are the basis of that song.
I think that song came out before this movie.
Well, this movie's based on a novel, so maybe the novel came out before the song. I don't fucking know. What do I look like, an expert?
The novel was written in 1928.
Yeah. That guy was 95 when he worked on the script.
He wrote the script. That's why the script is so full of plot holes.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, actually, because if it was written in 1928, it was also a futuristic sci-fi romp as well.
Very accurate.
Not only is the painting punched in 1946, a year that is almost 20 years off from when the novel was written.
Right.
It also processes what is the 1980s going to look like for America. Surprise! It's super integrated. David Keith is fencing with Daniel Day-Lewis. I don't know who those people are, but
well, David Keith is not fencing with him, but
he's not in this movie.
Keith David. It happens all the time. I want them to be a detective couple, like a Riggs and a Murtaugh.
Yes,
Keith David and David Keith.
You
Keith
and
David.
You and Nathan now have said that on this podcast.
I agree with it.
Well, you know what? I'm just collective unconscious. It's out there, and people. I think that would sell a great deal of tickets or garner many ratings if you decide to make it into a television show.
Yes, indeed. So now, like I said, Henderson's car is gone. He learns that Bryant left with Dwayne about an hour ago. Gross. He takes Shonda's beat-up car to the hotel, though, because she's like, you know what? Just take my car. Take it to the hotel. Is it a Pinto?
It's a Pinto.
It's beat to shit, but he takes it. And this hotel is wild. It's like, to get to his room, he has to go through like a fake like jungle, and then he has to get in a canoe and go across the water.
This portion of the movie made me go, oh, excellent! It's now a Carry On movie.
Yeah. Well, my biggest question was because a little bit later he has to there's like a chase and he has to jump in the canoe to get across the water. Did they build these canals in such a way that the only way across this hotel lobby is to jump in the canoe and take it across? There's no other possible way to get around that without having to get in the fucking canoe.
I mean, possibly, but not by the looks of it.
I think you can just run through the water because it's very shallow. But I mean,
it does happen actually.
But I mean, it is wild that this hotel is like, all right, you want to get to your room, you just got to go through the jungle filled with Native American stereotypes.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Then you got to
so many.
Don't forget about that. You got to take this canoe across the water, and then there you go. You're up to your room. There's also cowboys everywhere too.
Yeah, and
cowboys
a lot of them,
and Confederate soldiers.
Well, well, that's the thing. I wasn't sure because they look. First of all, they're sort of dressed like cavalry officers because a lot of them have the yellow like kerchief around their neck.
Sorry, you're right. They're cavalry, not.
But they're
Confederate
wearing
soldiers.
blue coats and they're wearing gray cowboy hats.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's some Fannin
It's
because
combined. In the hotel industry, you don't want to offend anybody.
That's true.
So what you do is you put a bit of the North on on the south, and then a bit of the south on the north.
Yeah, well,
You
you know
don't-
what? It makes sense because some Confederate units did wear Union blue because, especially early in the war, they didn't have their own uniforms, so they had to wear what they had, and it caused a lot of confusion.
Yeah, the hotel doesn't want to defend anyone, so they get their pearl white, blonde-haired actors to play Native Americans in the lobby.
It was the 80s. They were fine with that sort of thing.
That was cool.
God. So Henderson gets up to his hotel room. He's relaxing in the bath, and when he pops out of the bath real quick, I was like, oh shit, did we just see his left foot? Hey!
Hey.
He also sings Don Giovanni, which I thought was, considering
Yes,
the
that
amount
was
of
nice.
enemies he makes in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Also, we get to see a little bit of DDD
We do get to see Daniel
Daniel
Day
Day's
Dick.
dick.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
briefly.
Briefly. But he does get out of the bath. Irene shows up at this point, but so does
And
Melissa.
it's like, oh, come
Laurie
on,
Metcalf.
Irene.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah. Irene comes up and she gets into his room and she starts like tonguing his eyeball. She's like, I can feel your eye throbbing on my tongue. And I'm like, listen, whatever.
Don't
I'm not
kink
gonna-
shame.
I'm not going
Don't
to kink
kink
shame,
shame.
but I'm going to be like, listen, Joan Cusack, you're Joan Cusack. Okay, fine, let's do this.
You can lick my eyeball anytime, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
100% that was a Joan Cusack choice. I have to believe that.
I have to believe it because she's just quirky. She's
Yes,
a
she
quirky
radiates
person. But anyway, she does that. And then, there's a knock on the door. Henderson opens it. And he sees that it's his fiance, and he doesn't want to open it, and he's freaking out. Irene though goes right up to the door and opens it, and they both find out that something is wrong. Henderson comes up and pretends that he has no idea who this fiance is. Goes in the hallway, and she slaps him around. Threatens to tell her father, who is also his boss. We should mention that too. She storms off. Irene comes out of the room. She starts storming off. So Henderson starts chasing Irene to get her back through the lobby, and he starts yelling out, "Stop that woman! She's seriously ill." At
She's
least
forgotten her medication.
I guess hoping that the hotel staff will tackle Joan Cusack to the ground, and he can have her back.
So,
Yeah.
okay, the thing here is that most of this movie has been Daniel Day-Lewis trying to convince hill folk to sell him a rare piece of art.
Yeah.
And we have this slice of the movie, which plays like a much broader romantic comedy, which in all cards on the table, I did enjoy a lot of this bit.
Mm-hmm.
I did find it kind of funny in a very 80s rom-com cliched kind of way.
Sure.
So you mentioned earlier there was some severe tone shifts in this movie. I nearly broke my neck when this tone shift happened.
Well, yeah, and again, I just think it's so crazy that he's like trying to tell people that she's like an escaped mental patient, essentially. Like, oh my God, take her down! Like, did he think that they were gonna take her down, and then he was gonna walk up and be like, "So you forgive me now?" No, I'm even madder at you now.
He was also, I believe he was also mostly naked while doing this.
Yes, he was wearing a box, I believe.
Well, wasn't that the thing
No,
though?
it was wearing a blazer.
Oh, was
Yeah,
he?
a blazer
The
and
box
boxers, I
is
think.
much later.
Oh. No, I thought he was just wearing a box. No, is he not wearing a box? Maybe I'm thinking of Wallace and Gromit.
His dick was not in a box.
Okay.
But isn't this reflective of the 80s, of these type of movies in the 80s and 90s, because we all grew up with this sort of stuff where these grand gestures or these desperate gestures are the things that get you the girl in the movie, and in real
Yes.
life that just gets you shunned from society.
Arrested, tried as a stalker, possibly put on a list. Yes,
At minimal, shamed by your peers and family.
correct.
Yeah.
And having to pay some sort of bail money back.
Yeah, for sure. Restitution of all sorts.
Well, guys, it goes from bad to worse for Henderson because he returns to the Gage mansion just a destitute, defeated man, and he witnesses Mr. Gage suffering a rock and roll-induced heart attack and just dying before his eyes. At this point, I was like, oh, maybe he's not going to die. Jump cut right to a fucking funeral scene.
Where he is a pallbearer. And the other two chaps who were trying to buy the painting, also pallbearers.
They're all holding the casket. Why isn't his family doing that?
Those are the
Well,
only people that
Freeborn's
could carry
there,
it.
and I think Beckwith is there as well.
But I don't think
Yes.
Dwayne is there. I don't
No,
think any of
Dwayne's
the
not
other
there.
family
no,
members
because
are there.
you have to have the reveal.
Yeah, it's a big
Right,
time,
right.
big thing.
I know what you mean, but I just imagine the reveal being like, see, guys, holy shit, it's Will Patton. And in 1988, people being like, okay.
No, that's what inspired David Fincher in Seven with Kevin Spacey.
So I mean, you not only Freebone's a pallbearer, and so is
yes.
Henderson. Right, exactly.
I'm Fat Elvis.
Elvis Kaufman. Fat Elvis Kaufman. And so he looked kind of like Paul Bearer when you get right down to it.
Yeah, he kind of did.
Because he's rotund, you see.
I would hire Maury Chaykin to play Paul Bearer.
My Tony Clifton mad.
Not only is he, so it was Henderson.
Yeah.
The two chaps who were trying to buy the painting, and I think the pastor for some reason.
Yeah.
And while during the procession, there's a fracas, a scuffle breaks out between Freeboard and Henderson, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I love that before that happens though they're hauling the casket and they haul it through the most difficult circumstance where they go by a gravestone and then have to squeeze by a tree and then that's when
the tree.
Yeah, and then that's when the fracas breaks out and they drop the casket, of course, and they get into a fucking scuffle in the middle of the graveyard. And that's when the pastor's wife runs up and crying
/ Loomis's mistress.
Yes, absolutely, and grabs it and hauls it up herself, and she carries the back end of it while the rest of the rest tussle.
Lifts with her knees, not her back.
That's right. She is very smart.
This movie was about teaching good lessons to children.
Absolutely, 100%.
So at this point, Cora seems to come around on Henderson a bit. She starts to really motivated by nothing. She just it's like, I'm a good guy now.
It's a weird time. It's just out of nowhere, like an RKO with this exchange.
It's very much like I don't know if you guys have seen The Phantom, but it's very much like that scene in The Phantom where Christy Swanson looks at Catherine Zeta-Jones. He's like, why don't you try being nicer? And Catherine Zeta-Jones has a moment where she looks down and she's like, huh. It's like, wait, what? That's your turn?
It never crossed her mind before.
Never.
It's like the large native chap on The Simpsons who was just waiting for someone to reach out.
Yeah.
You remember when Homer went into the insane asylum and he met Michael Jackson?
Yes.
Yes, of course.
I know it well because it's a big deal in chimp culture, actually, because they mentioned bubbles.
Hello.
Oh, you talk? Yeah, just no one's ever talked to me before.
I think it was like the heel. It's like the heel turn of when Hulk Hogan became a good guy after he was a bad guy early on, and the heel turn was basically Freddie Blassie being like, well, he's a good man, he's learned his lesson. Or maybe it wasn't Freddie Blassie. Maybe it was Bob. I think it was Bob Backlund. It's just like, yeah, no, he's a good guy and he knows what's up now. He's a good.
That was
dude.
that was the turn.
Yeah,
I do.
That was the turn.
That. Yeah. No drama, no big thing. Just Bob Backlund doing a boring interview saying, "Well, I think he's good.
He's a good guy. He's all right."
So yeah, she seems to anyway. So yeah, she does a weird face turn, and she's like, "Listen, I don't know if you know this, but your 15-year-old." Not daughter, but your fiance's 15-year-old daughter is gonna she has upcoming nuptials with Dwayne. She's gonna marry that dude, and he's like, oh, what am I gonna do? And she's like, you should probably stop it from happening. And he's like, you're right. I'll just drug her and drag her away
while she watches Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I will say this is the one situation where I agree with him drugging a child. I think this is for the best. I think it was for the best.
I really do hope, Steve, if you're listening out there, just take that one section where Brendan says he agrees with drugging a child and use it to your heart's content.
Yeah.
Steve will do no harm.
This is the one time I will say, knock that child out with some drugs. It's for the best.
And use that portion too, Stephen.
Was the 80s that terrible that you could haul a drugged out child through an airport and nobody would say shit?
I had so many questions about that. I know we are definitely in a post 9/11 world, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's cover that when we get to it.
Yeah, so he does drug her, but before we get to that point where he's dragging a comatose child through an airport, there is a moment where he sees like a fire burning, and he goes outside, and oh my God, Beckwith is burning the... No, it's Dwayne. Dwayne. Yeah, let me say that again.
AKA Boo Radley.
In the big reveal.
Dwayne is burning the fucking Renoir in a fire as per his father's wishes, he says. He said, we all want to be happy and we're all going to die. And he said, oh, of course, that Mr. Gage said that. And he wanted this painting to be burned. This is going to make a lot of people upset. Henderson leaves a fake Dear John note for Dwayne on his door, and packs Bryant into the car, packs the unconscious child into the back seat of his car. But then Shonda shows up too, and she's like, I kind of want to escape my abusive husband. Can I come with you? And at first he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, dude, let her come with you.
Yes, she's beaten, and you're taking her car.
You're taking her car, and she just wants to escape this hellish life that she leads. Just take her with you. She doesn't have to live with you. So they all pile in the car, and they're not able to start it. But thankfully, holy shit, his fucking name again.
Yeah, so Beckwith shows up and gives them one last boost, and they manage to take off. Push starts them.
Yeah.
Push starts them, and he salutes them.
Because that
and
was the
everything.
thing, kids. Just so you know,
Yeah.
rolling push start to get your car going was a thing.
By the way,
yeah,
we didn't mention yet, Beckwith has got problems of his own. He always wears camo, which was not unexpected when you're dealing with a bunch of rednecks. That's fine. I mean, where I live here, where I was in New Brunswick, there's plenty of rednecks that wear camo.
he has Vietnam flashbacks, but was never to Vietnam.
Yeah.
It's when people wear the matching camos what throws me, Jason.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Or the ladies that wear pink camo. It's like, who are you fooling with pink camo? What animal is going to think you're? Where are you hunting? Are you hunting in fucking cotton candy land? What the fuck?
At that point, it's just a fashion statement.
That's right. That's right.
I want to hide with the unicorns. So they end up back in New York, and Shonda at this point is like, "Will you marry me, Henderson?" He's like, "Yes, fine. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes."
Dude, we were going to talk about this. How does he get through airport security with a drugged child slung over his shoulder?
Listen, guys, that's LaGuardia.
I mean, he's British, so he's got an authority to him that people wouldn't question.
Okay,
I'm just taking her back to her parents.
Explanations.
Oh yeah, sure you are.
Sir, is that a drugged out child? Yes, unfortunately, yes. So sorry. And you're like, were you gonna check that?
And we laugh because of the world that we live in now. Yeah. But I do recall there was a hockey broadcaster once in Canada who got stopped at an airport because the metal detector went off, and he jokingly said, "Oh, that's just the bomb in my suitcase." Now, he did get in trouble, but it was just kind of a stern talking to. Mm-hmm. Don't do that. Was essentially the beginning and end of it. He would be in prison if that happened today.
Yes.
Also, how strong is this drug? Because he's on an airplane from Georgia to New York. I feel like that's a bit of a jaunt. Plus, he drove there. Plus,
mostly up the eastern seaboard.
But still, I feel like how much he didn't put that much in her coffee, and it took a while to knock her out. So I feel like it wouldn't. I don't know. Well,
he had to get her into the car, the ancient broken down AMC Gremlin.
Yeah,
and then had to get her to the airport.
That's what I mean.
So we don't know how long that is.
It's not like they're
then onto the plane, and she's still out, by the time they get back to New York and into the cab.
So they let them on the plane with her unconscious, and had no problem with them going out of the plane and into the cab.
Oh, she's just eating some sleeping pills. She's very anxious.
She's quite. She was going to marry a 35-year-old. Maybe he just said that. Maybe he said she was going to marry a 35-year-old, and they were like, "Oh, okay, we understand."
So they think he's part of some sort of not-for-profit group who's saving child brides.
Yeah, he's from Perv Busters or something.
You know what? I feel that's a little less eloquent than the 80s would have it be.
Yes.
It's like
Perv Busters. What is wrong with you?
Pedo punchers.
Goodness gracious, no!
These are YouTube channels, Brendan.
Right. At least Facebook groups.
I gotta stop watching fake catching those creeps videos. So anyway, he loads this unconscious child into a taxi, and Shonda gets in as well, and they take off. But then Henderson, he runs afoul of Freeborn, and they're in town suddenly, and his art dealers, and they plot to rip his nipples off. But they argue.
It's an art house shakedown.
Yeah, they argue over who gets to go first. And Freeborn is like, "Get out of the room. I'm taking it. I'll find out where that painting is."
I could have gone a long time without seeing Daniel Day-Lewis's patch.
There was a lot of pubic hair.
A lot.
And it's not the first time we've seen
even
Edie
for a
Ellis pubic
British
hair in a
person.
movie.
That's a considerable amount.
Yeah.
Have you noticed too, there's some threads here that could have been picked up that weren't like when she says, will you marry me? And he says yes. That's just where that ends. That never comes back and is never resolved.
It doesn't really get a chance to now, does it? Because we're rounding third base on this thing.
Yeah, and we've clearly still got a lot to go. We still got a lot to cram in here into the third act.
Right. Yeah, so Freeborn is pointing the gun at him. He says, where's the painting? Where's the painting? And Henderson is like, it burned. And Freeborn has a complete meltdown and says, no. We need to say that it's in your office, right? Because they're going to kill me too. And I'm like, what kind of fucking deal did you make with these art dealers?
yeah, they're going to kill you over a painting?
Well, that's the strange thing, because earlier Jason had noted that these chaps look like they were, mobsters of some sort. But then we go back, they're legitimate art people. They're making corporate art. I mean, it's something you do en masse to sell to Neiman Marcus when they look fancy. We need a new piece of art that's, looks good, but is not actually an original piece of art that would be very expensive. Well, guys, something that was made in a mold.
It's a legitimate business.
Maybe the moral of this story is don't judge a book by its cover. I'm just kidding. Henderson does manage to escape out the window completely bare-ass naked, which he shatters a window and then climbs over, and I was like, that is the stunt of the film.
I was like, your perineum is in some real danger.
Yeah.
I was more concerned for his back, because when he goes out through the window, you could see his back kind of scrape against the glass. Now,
I was more concerned
glass,
for his perineum.
Well, you should be.
It was perineum peril, actually.
That's a movie right there, Montrose.
I like how, Jason, that you're assuming this 1988 movie had consideration for its actors and actually used sugar glass.
Actually, by the way, Montrose, perineum peril sounds like an old Looney Tunes cartoon that was not allowed to be released.
Oh, was it one of the original Chuck Jones ones?
Yes, 100%.
I think Bob Clampett helped on that one.
For some reason, Daffy Duck fights Hitler in it. It's really weird.
Yeah, it's a strange one.
Punches him in the taint. That's where the title comes from.
So Henderson is bare-ass naked, running through town. This is where he's wearing the box. He's wearing a box that says maxi pads on it.
A box that had maxi pads in it. Yes.
We also see
he's pretending to be a runner, and he tells the guy, he's like, "Oh, that's my sponsor."
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations, man. That's what he says.
We also see that Dwayne is also in town. I just want to mention that too.
Sure. I was going to say, clearly, like it's calling back to the image of the guy wearing a barrel with shoulder straps, that he's lost everything. And this dude's wearing this maxi pads box with the plastic box straps over his shoulders. And I love that he just kind of finally accepts it.
So he goes, he ends up in an alley for the night. He wakes up, though, and finds his old pal Keith David. Hey, he's back to bookend this movie. Eugene helps him out, and then the bad guys show up. Henderson tells them quickly, hey, guess what? That painting was burned. And Freeborn is like, no, he's lying. It's in his office. It's not burned. But that's okay, because the whole thing turns into a fencing match.
Yes.
Well, no, but his distracted for the getaway with all of this, that Freeborn chap just starts. I thought he had a stroke. Because he was like, oh, look at the time. It's a boy. I'm a papa. I've got to go. My wife is in labor.
Yeah, and then he just runs out, and it takes everyone else like a few. It almost was like an episode of like a cop show, or an episode of like a weekly show, because he does that. He runs out, and the guys are just standing around like, well, I guess that's that. But yeah, Freeborn makes up that crazy excuse to get out of there. I do like the note where one of the art dealer guys turns around. He's like, by the way, you and me, one-on-one anytime, buddy.
Yeah.
And he got his ass
and
handed
then
to
Keith
him.
David spanks him with the foil.
Right, as if that guy put up a good fight with Keith David in the fencing match. I also like the fact that it's not like you have a guy like Keith David and you have him like fencing people, not like just kicking people's asses, which is what it should have been.
Yes, this is Stars and Bars, not They Live.
I guess, although I would have loved it if this just turned into like a 15-minute fight scene.
Yes, my goodness.
So yeah, they chase the art dealer people away with simple fencing. Of course, they got rid of their guns and everything. Yeah, guys, guns come out at this point. Again, the tone shifts are crazy. Henderson, meanwhile, finds Irene because he goes to the restaurant where they first had their date. Luckily enough, she's in there because I guess she just lives there.
We've also been treated to the fact that Dwayne, as you said earlier, Dwayne
I did
is
mention
in,
it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he's staked out Irene's office.
Because the note, the Dear John note on his door, Henderson for some reason used Irene's business card, and so he's able to find the office. Yes. So as Henderson is sitting in the restaurant with Irene, he's trying to make good, and all of a sudden Dwayne stumbles in with a fucking gun, and he's like, "You took my woman, you took my child bride," and he's like freaking out and chasing after him, and you're like, "Oh my God, how is this going to resolve?" The homeless guy David Strathairn comes back into play. How is this going to resolve this chasing? Surely this is going to lead somewhere. It does, to the credits.
Yeah.
Yes, that is it.
You don't know what happens.
This movie's like Return of the King. There's a bunch of different places where you think the movie should end, but it keeps going, and then it ends on an unresolved cliffhanger.
It's like Return of the King with all the endings, but it ends like Two Towers with no conclusion.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's Stars and Bars, guys.
Oh, my.
So,
Excuse me, I don't have any opposable thumbs, but I'm going to try my hardest.
well, you did a pretty good job. Throw it like your poop, Montrose.
Oh, spot on.
So we'll go around the horn. We'll see what people think about this one. As in you two, you people. Jason, was this
Wait,
movie?
hold on a second. What do you mean, you people?
Podcast co-hosts.
Okay.
Oh, obviously.
Jason,
What do I think of this
was
movie?
this movie?
Well,
Was it? Well, hold on. Let me give you the categories.
He's got a scale for you.
sure.
Got a scale for you, you snake.
Yeah.
Was this movie worth a watch? A drunk watch with friends? Would you attempt head trauma to forget it or avoid it like the plague?
I mean, I think it could be fun for a drunk watch with friends just because of how bonkers it kind of goes in the third act. Like, the first two parts of it feel like a pretty conventional romantic comedy. There's some weirdness, but when they hit that third act, it just goes crazy. And there's some weird fun to be had there, but weird fun, does not necessarily a good movie make.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, get hammered and watch it, but Christ. I picked this movie. I specifically requested this to Brendan because I'm a big Civil War fan.
That's the best you can give it, eh?
I know. This is I'm a big Civil War buff, and the idea of Stars and Bars, I thought, so Daniel Day-Lewis is going to go to the South, and people are going to be racist to him, and it's going to be a bad attempt at humor. And there was far less of that than I expected, but I didn't quite expect the movie we got with this insanity. But yeah, so drunk watch, I guess, but it's also interesting because it's an example of Daniel Day-Lewis attempting to be a leading man in a kind of mainstream romantic comedy, which is fascinating because he doesn't I don't know if he's done it besides this, and so it's cool to see that, but it's just there's nothing special about his performance.
This is, I think he's pretty committed throughout.
He's fine, yeah, no, he's Daniel Day-Lewis. He'll be good in anything you put him in, but just as far as all the other roles he's done and all the kind of lengths he's gone to and the characters he's played, it feels so just basic.
I think this was their attempt, though, to because he had only done some British stuff, some stuff across the pond, and this was their attempt to let's bring this guy in and make him a star in Hollywood, and this was just not the way to do it.
They saw a good-looking British guy who is a fantastic actor, and they thought, yeah, we can turn him into a leading man.
Yeah.
He is,
but not in the way they wanted him.
But not in the Hugh Grant sort of way. Although, thankfully, Hugh Grant is now doing those character roles in more and more movies, which I appreciate. But this was definitely what he ended up doing in the 90s.
All right. Well, Montrose, what say you, bud? What do you think?
Yeah, I would say I would attempt head trauma to forget about it.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't feel there are funny enough beats to warrant an intoxicated watch with chaps. However, and also I don't feel that the zaniness is as played up as it could be to also make that entertaining. So I'm going to try to forget that I've watched this movie, and we'll be bashing my skull in.
Fair.
And I will round it out by saying I think I agree. I think I'm also going to attempt head trauma to forget it. Jason, you did bring up a good point. The last 20 minutes or so do get pretty bonkers, but I do feel like the beginning, the first hour and some change it's just nothing. There's just nothing there. It's great to see all these crazy good actors, including Daniel Day-Lewis and all these supporting actors, but ultimately at the end of the day, I don't know, just watch the last 25 minutes. Was the cast of this movie like the studio owed all these actors a role
And it was like, oh, we just have this random group of people. We owe them a role. We'll just throw them in this movie, and everybody gets their contracts filled and gets a paycheck, and we're happy. Because it just seems so, I mean, other than the fact that they're all white, it seems so random who they picked to be in this movie. And they're great. Everybody's individually great. It's just a strange combination of people. Especially Maury Chaykin, of all people, being cast in this movie. But, I mean, I love Maury Chaykin, so I was happy to see him.
Agreed. But now, folks, we are going to take a brief break. We are going to listen to some ads, and we will be right back.
What were they thinking?
You'd love to invest on your own, but how? Well, with Questrade, we don't just give you all the tools you need. We also give you tutorials and how-to videos to teach you how to use them. Download the Quest mobile app today and start investing in your RSP.
Banking packages from Scotiabank have unique rewards for unique people like you. Whether it's a backpacking honeymoon or a new home with a yoga studio, they want to help you do what you love and get rewards you'll love. Scotiabank. You're richer than you think. Visit scotiabank.com/ultimate350. Conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by the Toyota Tundra TRD Pro, the new definition of grit. Grit is more than just mud and dirt and rocks. For the Tundra TRD Pro, grit is unrelenting torque courtesy of an iForce Max hybrid powertrain and the ability to connect with your world through the impressive 14-inch touchscreen. Grit is total confidence to tow just about anything, anywhere.
Hello, we are back, morphing into NPR.
Yes, hello.
Thank you, NPR bot. Welcome back, everyone. It is now time for the low haiku. Montrose, perhaps, I mean, you've been around the block. Tell people what they can expect from the low haiku.
The low haiku is the portion of the show where these chaps attempt to wax poetical about the movie that they were just speaking about for an hour and a bit. They use the traditional 575 syllable count to make this the low haiku.
Indeed. And Jason, as our guest, would you like to read your haiku first?
I'd be honored to do so, Brendan. Thank you.
Thank you.
In a velvet bag, shook up a big pile of whites and one angry maid.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Montrose, I'm assuming you prepared a haiku as well.
Yes. I'm no stranger to this game.
Okay.
Holy, what a cast. This is meant to be funny? Well, I guess they failed. My feelings are rather succinct.
Yes. Very good. All right, I'll finish it off with my haiku here. It's super zany. Southern people be crazy. Daniel's Dick Lewis.
Oh my.
Ooh, I say.
Thank you. And a 1 and a 2 and a beep out. There we go. We're out.
Wow.
I'm proud.
Good job.
As Charles Wright would say. Guys, we waxed poetic just now, but there's another thing we got to do here. You're listening to our opinions, but, don't listen to us. What do we always say, Montrose?
I believe that you chaps have been known to say,
Don't take a word for us.
That's right. That's what we say. We say, don't take our word for it. Now, you might have to, Montrose, and why is that?
well, unfortunately, this nothing burger has a kind of a non-existence over at the Rotten Tomatoes.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't even have a rating, as I understand. Does it have an audience rating?
Oh, yes, it actually only have a 39%, but out of a paltry 250 audience ratings. And if you know anything about the internet, people are more than glad to say whatever they want about any thing. So this thing has gotten like no love from anybody. However, if you did like this film, I'm advised here that you would like a movie called The Kids Are Back. It looks to be a, I believe, a Spanish language film. There's obviously dubbed or subtitled. The Healer. I can't see anybody in that one. The Strongest Man. The Devil and Father Amorth. And finally, Supernatural Activity, which is a spoof of the Paranormal Activity films.
Oh, and I'm sure an even better one than the one we already watched. Wonderful. But we're going to drop Rotten Tomatoes like a sack of potatoes. Huh?
Right, because it's actually only 2 readable audience reviews.
Yeah,
on Rotten
and
Tomatoes.
neither one is really worth a damn. So I think Montrose is heading over to the IMDb. Jason's looking around. I'm on the Letterboxd. Let's get into this. I'll read the first review here from Danica over on Letterboxd, who gives this 1 star.
Oh, Miss Kilpatrick.
Yep. She says, Daniel Day-Lewis really got bare-ass naked and climbed out of a window, and just seeing his pale-ass booty cheeks and twiggy legs made me laugh so hard that I had an asthma attack.
Miss Patrick, my goodness. Well, over on the IMDb, there's a user by the name of Peter Patty, who titled their review "Good Novel Adaptation" and writes, William Boyd's Stars and Bars, the book, stands in the great tradition of the English comic novel, Evelyn Waugh being one of Boyd's masters and inspirators. I think the chap was looking for the word inspiration. But anyhow, now I've seen the film only in the German language. That's a pity because of the resulting demi-lack of Englishmen in New York effects. As you can imagine, the German translation cannot be that perfect. I guess that's the linguistical misunderstandings between the hero, Day-Lewis, and the bizarre Georgian family with Anglophobic slurs are 10 times funnier in the original version, as they are in the book. Anyway, I liked the film immediately, and I'm happy to have taped it. Great cast, unforgettable, Maury Chaykin as Elvis-like freeborn. 8 out of 10.
Wow, that was a ride.
I have a review here, Brendan, from TV Guide. The most trusted source for reviews.
Yes.
This review is unsigned, so I don't know who wrote it, so I assume this is the opinion of TV Guide as a whole.
Yes.
And most of this review recaps the movie, as TV Guide has wanted to do, so I'll read you the relevant part at the end.
Thank you.
Embarrassingly unfunny, Stars and Bars is the 3rd theatrical feature directed by Irishman Pat O'Connor. The film is a horribly miscalculated attempt at firing a satiric slapstick zinger at the differences between the stiff, superior ways of the British and the boorish, combative ways of American Southerners.
Wow. He also, I just realized Pat O'Connor directed one of my least favorite movies of all time called The January Man. Oh, no one watch it. It's terrible. And this is coming from someone who loves Kevin Kline. It's terrible. And somehow this was written by the same person who wrote Chaplin.
Wow.
And a movie called A Good Man in Africa. I don't know why that makes me laugh so hard.
Just the one.
And if you must know, yes, it is mostly white people on the poster. Okay. So John Rule says this is the film you asked Daniel Day-Lewis about. If you ever have him cobble your shoes nowadays or whatever, 1 star.
Okay. Merkelkrantz. Where do these people get this?
That's a fake name.
Well, it's obviously some sort of internet handle. They write, the title of the review is, reminds me of another Harry Dean Stanton misfire, Twister.
Wow.
This fish out of water film has
Are they saying that Twister is a Harry Dean Stanton film?
And a misfire.
I forgot he was even in that.
I mean, he's not even like 4th lead in that movie.
Also, this movie reminds him of it.
Of Twister.
Somehow.
Yeah, it's the same tornado, same thing.
Yeah, it's tornado shit.
So this fish out of water film has Daniel Day-Lewis, uptight Englishman, thrown into a dysfunctional family of southern hillbillies led by Harry Dean Stanton. Not unlike Stanton's similar misfire movie Twister, the story is slight, but not as stretched as Twister. Both movies have offbeat characters on parade. Stars and Bars begins with a rather unflattering view of New York City and then relies on Georgia backwoods stereotypes for both dark and slapstick humor. This film would certainly have to be classified as an acquired taste, and there are plenty of dead spots throughout. Nevertheless, the quirky characters played by some good character actors is enough to recommend for admirers of the strange. Merc. That's how they signed that, and gave it a 6 out of 10.
Oh, okay.
I've got a short one here, and then I've got a long one next. My short one here is from spiritualityandpractice.com, of course, having their section of reviews. And again, like many reviews, it's recapping the plot. The relevant part here says, the comedy elements in this film are strained, but it works as a portrait of how one man forges a new personality while some terrible things are happening to him.
All right.
Okay.
That's the only thing in this 2 paragraphs that is referring to the quality of the movie.
All right. Okay, well, this one is from Michael Eternity, of course. And Mr. Eternity says, it is satisfyingly unique to see an actor of Daniel Day-Lewis's clout, stature, and mythical aloofness as both a private celebrity, highly selective working actor, and man of formidable talent interacting with character actors in a regular movie environment instead of fellow A-list thespians in some incredibly important Oscar-festooned work of art. In addition to watching him bubble around like Hugh Grant, you can watch Mr. Greatest Actor Alive shoot the breeze with Keith David, make out with Joan Cusack, banter with Martha Plimpton, etc. It's kind of refreshing. Couldn't he have done this a few more times later on just for fun, just for the pleasure of his fans? His standards and ambition were admirable, but the guy never relaxed and let himself be a movie star. Then again, Stars and Bars is whoppingly abominable, wrong-headed, unfunny pit of flailing despair that hardly makes a single right move in its 91 minutes, full of rancid caricatures and witless scenarios, so maybe this is what scared him permanently straight thereafter. No more slumming it in these burlesque pictures, he must have said to his agent, and indeed it is the last time he ever stepped foot in the comedy genre. Half a star.
Wow.
Goodness. Well, my next one, it doesn't have a star rating.
Coward.
I didn't think that was possible on IMDb. But I think it's because you actually can't give a star rating to a possible cry for help. Elisa Berger, on January 5th, 2003, wrote, "Oh, how I would love to own this on DVD. A marvelous job by Daniel Day-Lewis, Harry Dean Stanton, Joan Cusack, and Glenne Headley. In my opinion, it is a deep South tour de farce. I guess you have to have lived there to appreciate the humorous poke at what lies behind the moss-covered trees that line the back roads of the South. It reminds me of Out on a Limb, a similar Southern dark comedy with Matthew Broderick. Both are hysterical weekends with people whose families' trees don't branch. You will never see Lewis doing this whimsy again, except perhaps as the pansy boyfriend in Room with a View, which he did about the same time. Both characters are played with equal artistic integrity. He grants all of his roles. Kudos and many laughs to all."
Wow.
Cry for help.
Damn. That's crazy.
Because I don't think there's a single human alive that would actually write that. So if anybody knows where Elisa Berger was on January 5th, 2003, and you haven't heard from her since then, if you can IP search this review, you might be able to find her remains.
Sounds delicious.
Very nice.
Jason, do you have something to cheer us up after that?
I do. I have, so Dateline, April 15th, 1988. So this is a contemporary review of this movie. And the headline reads...
I thought Chris Hansen was going to tell that Harrison needs to sit down over there because he's with Martha Plimpton.
Yeah, well, it may
just
very
have
well
a seat
happen.
right over there.
So this review is written by one Sheila Benson, and the headline reads, "Pitifully dreary stars belong behind bars."
Oh my!
Stars belongs.
Are you sure it wasn't written by Gene Shalit?
You'd think, but no. It's
Okay.
one Sheila Benson, and it begins. It's not long, but it's longer than normal. So it begins. It is impossible to delineate properly all the ways in which Stars and Bars derails, but it does. Dear heaven, it does. It's the Southern Gothic odyssey of an upper-class English art historian, Daniel Day-Lewis, working for an American art auction house and sent to deepest Georgia to bid on a previously unknown Renoir. The intention of reflecting wittily and cattily on the culture clash that might ensue somehow implodes. The large funny moments die before they work themselves out, such as one at the vast indoor atrium hotel in which Day-Lewis must navigate a canoe across a foot-deep body of water to the, quote, Indian village side of the lobby. The small shaggy dog moments, like the blind sister at the family mansion who sees better than you or I, do not play at all. And one of the niftiest collections of actor-comedians since David Byrne's True Stories is left higher and far drier than that canoe. Harry Dean Stanton, Joan Cusack, Spalding Gray, Glenne Headley, Will Patton, and Martha Plimpton. Sympathies all around. Stars and Bars was directed by Pat O'Connor, whose previous heavily dramatic Cal seems to have prepared him not at all for rustic comedy. William Boyd did the adaptation from his own book. You suspect that the book was singular and daft, but the suspicions are all you're going to get because every foot of the movie moves with the struggle of an insect on flypaper. Day-Lewis plays most of the first New York section in a miasma of subdued viciousness. Little wonder, since he has been almost kidnapped by his boss's daughter, Laurie Metcalf, who has unilaterally declared them engaged. The Georgia section, Snopes' humor division, is somewhat heavier on physical comedy, and the film ends back in New York with Day-Lewis scampering out of a second-story window and all across Manhattan, stark naked in pouring rain. I cannot recall ever having felt such pity for an actor in my life. Wow. Strong words.
Wow. All right. Well, I've got one. I'll do my last one here. This is a little bit shorter than Jason's previous review.
It could only be.
This is from Antonia, and she simply says, "This the I've abandoned my child, dude." 4 stars.
Oh my. Well, my last one is from Eno 2000.
Sure.
And they wrote.
Are you sure it's not Enos 2000 when Mike Enos did his futuristic gimmick in WCW?
No, it's Eno.
Oh, okay.
The bromo seltzer.
Sure.
And Eno 2000, which was Eno's for the new millennium, they write, depending on your expectations, you'll love it or hate it. That's the title of the review. To which they write, this is one of those rare films that seems to divide into only 2 groups. You will only be able to love it or hate it. However, I think the previous reviews leave out an essential element to determining which camp you fall into, whether you're interested in the actors, based on previous roles, or the film. The best way to give you some idea of what to expect is the usual vehicle, comparison with other films. If you loved Martin Scorsese's film After Hours, or enjoyed Something Wild with Melanie Griffith and Jeff Daniels, or were even guiltily amused by Who's That Girl starring Madonna and Griffin Dunn, then you will probably like this movie. Stars and Bars uses a similar formula of straight-laced, uptight men being taken for a wild adventure by free-spirited, sexy women. Obviously, this would put someone like Daniel Day-Lewis into the right role, a tightly wound, serious man, but in a very different universe from films like My Left Foot and The Age of Innocence. If you are hoping for another period piece or serious art, this film is not for you. Luckily, I happen to like films that range from Wim Wenders to the latest Adam Sandler vehicle. Smiley face emoticon.
Also, I can confirm that theory is one of his theories is incorrect because I saw 2 of those 3 movies mentioned and loved them, and I do not like this movie. So,
well, you know what? At least you showed.
Might I
your
read
work.
one last thing here, just because I think it's relevant?
Yes, finish
you off.
Finish me off.
I found
Jason.
a review from the Spanish
goodness.
newspaper El Pay. This is Google translated from Spanish, and it was written by Angel Fernandez Santos on the 31st of August, 1988. So, and I just want to, because it's an interesting thing, and I'm just going to read the first paragraph of this, but I think it's a fun thing. There is no way to understand some of the changes that marketers of foreign films insist on making in their original titles and that are often crazy, if not comical. The case of this film that we are commenting on is one of them, and one of the most flagrant. The original title is Stars and Stripes, which alludes to a topical fetish, sign, or symbol of the United States national identity. Not quite, but... Well, it has been renamed here as A Gentleman in New York. That, once the film is seen, it is laughable because neither the protagonist is a gentleman, but rather a tacky one, even in the etymological sense, salesman, store employee, nor does the action of the film take place in New York, except for the initial sequences in the last, but in a southern village in the outskirts of the city of Adiana. And by the way, did I mention the headline of this was A Tacky in Atlanta?
Okay, that's
fair take.
I love that. A Gentleman in New York is what they called it in Spain, or I think in Spain.
That's wild. That's not what the movie's about at all. Then again, Stars and Bars also not a great title.
No, because again, not a single Stars and Bars flag in the movie, folks, that I noticed.
It does conjure up that there would be some sort of, hillbillies and racism going on.
Or maybe even a Civil War reenactment figuring into the plot somehow. Of maybe Freeborn, of course, as being like a Southern guy, and then he's chasing Daniel Day-Lewis, who dressed up as a Union soldier accidentally.
I just expected a straightforward Civil War movie like something like Glory.
Or Gods and Generals by your buddy Ron Maxwell.
Oh yeah, my buddy, my close personal friend,
close personal lost cause,
who gave me the one bit of direction I received on that entire set, which was, can you walk a little bit later? Okay, how much later? I don't know, give it 3 seconds. Oh, also try not to hit Jason Patrick with that giant farming thing you've got in your hand, because he's on a horse, and that could get bad. He didn't say that part, but it was implied.
Yes,
So there you go. Those are the reviews, folks. That's the movie Stars and Bars. But now we'd like to talk about some good stuff.
Yes.
We like to talk about what we're watching. It's the What You Watching, Bud. It's the dance sensation that's sweeping the nation. So Jason, we'll start with you. What you watching, Bud?
What you watching, Bud? I don't know what you're watching, Bud. I'll tell you so. Do.
I'm going to give you two. I'll give you what I'm watching and what I'm playing. I'm watching currently Severance with Adam Scott. I'm about 4 episodes in, and it's really good. It's a really good show. I mean, that's not crazy. People have been saying that. And it's on Apple TV, so who even has that? But yeah, it's a really interesting show, and it's funny, but it's also super dark. And yeah, I'm enjoying it, and I can't wait to get to the end of it. So I'm currently playing a game called Pillars of Eternity 2. I have not played Pillars of Eternity 1, but I'm currently playing Pillars of Eternity 2, and it is a great game. You get to be a pirate sort of in it and between story missions, and I'm enjoying it very much. So Pillars of Eternity 2, check it out.
And Montrose, I'm assuming you're watching some classy cinema. What you watching, Bud?
Well, actually, I've actually taken up to watching a TV show on the Disney Plus. And it has Colby Smothers and that chap from The New Girl. It's called Stumptown. It's very fun, kind of weekly mystery type show with some overarching character development. But for the most part, it's mostly some fairly light, PI schlockery.
Okay.
Sounds fun.
Very good. Very good. And what am I watching, Bud? Well, I'll tell you what I'm watching, Bud. Okay, so guys, we all know that, I think a couple of weeks ago now, a week or so ago from whenever we're recording this, we kind of had a major outage in Canada where everything just kind of shit the bed and went out. Internet, debit, it was a great time. During that time, luckily, I had some physical media. And I had a bunch of movies I just never sat down and watched. And one of those that I purchased for about $5 was a movie called The Ghost in the Darkness.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, that's one that I was like, oh, whatever, I'll put it on, give it a shot, whatever. It was actually pretty good. I actually liked it. It's not like a full-throated recommend, oh, this is a classic film, but it's got like, it's kind of reminiscent of Jaws and movies like that where they're going after, there's some kind, it's man versus nature, essentially. You got your Val Kilmer and your Michael Douglas. Val Kilmer, who I usually do enjoy, but I will say in this movie, he's kind of flat. But thankfully, you got your Michael Douglas coming in and just absolutely destroying and having the best time of his life as like I want to say his last name is also the name of a gun, and I don't remember.
Browning.
I don't remember entirely.
Remington.
What's that?
Remington.
I think his last name is Remington. I just remember being like, I just remember watching it being like, wow, that is so on the nose, but on brand for this movie. So it's basically about Val Kilmer goes to Africa to build a bridge, as you do, and he has a hard time getting the poorly paid workers, I'm sure, to help him build this bridge because, there's a couple lions lurking around, and they're real aggressive, and they're targeting people. Like it's not just these lions are out and hungry; they are fully targeting these people. And of course, Michael Douglas comes in as this expert hunter to help them out, defend against these lions, and kill them. And I don't know, it's just a lot of fun. It's a crazy movie.
What you're saying is that this time it's personal.
It's personal.
See, there you go. There's your tagline right there.
It might suggest a different tone than this movie is, but
get Michael Caine in there. I mean, he already did it with a shark.
Should have been Michael. He did it with a shark.
Well,
don't say that about Catherine Zeta-Jones. She is a lovely lady.
Yes, but she's dead behind the eyes. She's a shark.
What movie was Michael Caine in where he was bopping Catherine Zeta-Jones?
Oh, I thought you said Michael. Wait, you say Michael?
No, I said put Michael Caine in.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Michael Douglas.
He'd already done it with a shark.
I gotcha.
As in, he's already done this sort of thing with a shark.
True. He did chase that
where
shark.
A shark actually manages to take out a personal vendetta against people
and outrun a plane, if I remember Richard Jennings' bit correctly.
A shark? Don't say that about Shelley Winters.
Shark is fast form of travel.
But anyway, The Ghost in the Darkness. Check it out. I don't know where it is, but I watched it on physical media, so watch it that way.
It sounds like a Bridge on the River Kwai, but with a '90s attitude.
It's like okay, I'll be honest with you. Listen, it's a recommendation, but it's Bridge on the River Kwai if it was hit in the head a couple times.
All
like
right,
it's
cool.
not. It's not a.
And they threw in some lions.
Yeah, it's not like a brilliant movie.
Can you
but
imagine
it's just fun.
if Alec Guinness had to team up with Colonel Saito and they had to fight lions together? How much better Bridge on the River Kwai would have been?
I feel like it wouldn't have been quite as good. Well, there you go. That's that. So, Jason, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Fellas, I am always pleased to be here. Montrose, give my best to Nathan. Tell him I'm sorry he couldn't be here. But
I will certainly pass that along, and I will let him know that he is wrong about you. Cause,
he is extremely wrong about me. 100%.
Jason, do you have anything you would like to promote?
Well, I would like to say that I do another podcast with this guy over here, Brendan. It's called For Screen
and Country.
And we talk about British movies. We started with the BFI list. We've watched some Canadian movies because that figures under the Commonwealth. Perhaps someday we'll watch a South African movie. I don't know. We'll see.
Elon Musk documentary, perhaps?
Absolutely. The best one.
Chappie.
And so
wait, is that the name of the documentary?
Yeah, it's a documentary.
No. That's another.
That's true. District 9, perhaps.
It's about Elon Musk back when he was a robot.
Yes.
Anything by Neil Blomkamp.
Yeah, before he had ascended. But yeah, so check us out. We're on all the podcasters For Screen
and Country.
You can find us there. I'm on Twitter at Jason D. MacLeod, so you can follow
That's
me
MacLeod.
That is correct. So yeah, again, thank you guys. I love being on here, and it was wonderful to watch this weird, fucking terrible movie with you.
Well, thank you, Jason. And Montrose, would you like to plug your shit, as it were?
Yes, you can see my YouTube channel, Montrose Monkington TV. You can be friends with me at the Facebook group Montrose Monkington III Esquire and Friends. And finally, you can also tweet at me on your Twitter devices at Montrose III. That's the number 3RD. Thank you. More later. And now is later, so more.
Are you forgetting something?
You're right. You're right. Ha 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 ha. Yeah.
Thank you. You can find us, of course, on all the podcast apps. Our home base is Age of Radio.
Oh, Big time.
Yes, thank you for reading the script there.
Okay.
And of course, we're on social media. Just search for us on Facebook. What were they thinking? On Twitter and Instagram at WWTT Podcast. We're on Redbubble, TeePublic, Patreon.com, all that good stuff. Well, that's out of the way. So now we've come to the end here. We usually where, I guess usually Nathan would ask me questions, but I'm sure Montrose has some questions about this movie. Yeah. So Montrose, lay it on me, my man.
What do you got?
I would be happy to.
Oh, what's going on?
Oh no! What's happening? Oh,
no!
You thought you wouldn't find me on one of my shows.
No!
You're wrong, Brendan. You're wrong, Jason. You're wrong.
You monster!
I have been Montrose Merkington III all along.
Why would you do that?
Since the beginning?
Since the very, I have a small, but pivotal role coming up in the next King Kong movie where I play a delightful chimpanzee. And I needed to know everything I needed to know about being a chimpanzee.
Damn it, I knew it was weird that he was here. Jason, why does this happen everywhere?
Daniel Day-Lewis, you are a monster. You took 2 years of my life from me, and now you've stolen Montrose's life too? Where is he? Where is the monkey, Daniel?
It has been me the whole time. Except for Congo. That was terrible. I watched that movie. It said, Tim Curry. What was he thinking?
Oh, God damn it, he stole the line too.
Thank you, Daniel Day-Lewis!
Georgia, the whole day through. Just an old sweet song keeps Georgia on my mind. Georgia on my mind. I said, Georgia, a song of you. Comes as sweet and clear as moonlight through the pines. Other arms reach out to me, other eyes smile tenderly. Still in the peaceful dreams I see the road